Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management, a weekly conversation with area leaders about how to persevere during uncertain times. Now here's your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. Our guest today is State Representative Barb Wasinger. And Barb, good to have you on our program this morning.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you.
You know what? It's one of those things that, did you ever imagine, leadership always has challenges to go along with it, but it's been a busy session so far. In fact, you had an all-night session just a few days ago. How did that go?
Well, it's that 1 week is called Drop Dead Week, and it's named that very purposefully.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is get everything over to the governor's desk. And so we spent a really long night. We're going to have a couple of days of work when we get back to try to finish up some of the bills that weren't able to make it. And then we'll go ahead and see if we can override any vetoes that we think we want to do. And then we'll have we'll be pretty much done at the end of the week. That's what they're hoping. So,
well, I know it takes a lot of work to get that process going. You're right in the middle of that, a couple leadership roles in the House of Representatives. But when you first decided to run for office, did you ever imagine an issue such as the transgender athlete issue?
Well, no, but I know that it's important, and it's not, everyone likes to call it the transgender athlete, but it's fairness in women's sports. It's protecting Title IX, and it follows directly with Title IX. So that's why it is important. Years ago, when I was graduating from high school, Title IX was just being implemented at that time. It had just passed in 72. So I didn't get a chance to have, I was a swimmer, and I didn't have a chance to take that any farther than club swimming or, summer team things. So it's important. It's important to save women's sports. We worked very hard for it, and we want to keep it intact.
So just to explain, because it seems like there's some misunderstanding, explain what actually happens with that fairness bill.
It says that only biological women can compete against biological women, and it covers K through 12 and some secondary schools. So it just means that you need to be a biological woman in order to compete in women's sports.
And that's based on your birth certificate, right?
There are two things that you have to do in the state of Kansas. You have to have a valid birth certificate in order to even register in schools. And then secondly, you have to have a sports physical in order to play sports in school. So it's very simple.
What do people not understand? Because I know there's been controversy on this, like there are in so many things.
Of course.
What do people not understand?
Well, they're saying that we are forcing genital examinations. There's no mention of genitalia in the bill, none whatsoever. A physician or someone doing a sports physical, I've never had one. I did send a copy of Keisha's sports physical information to a newspaper to say, my kids have had sports physicals, but I have never had one. So between the sports physical and the birth certificate, there shouldn't be any problem.
One of the things that I've noticed is that you've handled this controversy really well with a lot of good facts and background for doing that. And whether that be town hall meetings or other things, some good background and support that goes with that. And I think that's what happened across the legislature when the governor's veto was overridden. It seemed like there was probably more common sense put in that than maybe some of the emotional things that go into it.
Right. I tried to steer it away from that, even though the opposition wanted to just keep steering it back to that. But it's really simply about saving women's sports. And I think that's really important. And this is the third year that I've carried the bill. And then I was given the opportunity to carry the override. So I appreciate that. It's been a long road.
long road, but we'll keep working down it. And
Mhm.
you've added some responsibility this session as well. I know you were just named as the chair, and this just recently of I'm going to read this, the Legislative Modernization Committee.
Yes.
What's that about?
Well, we have been given a wide berth in what we want to do. So some of the things that are most obvious are lowering the use of paper in the legislature, but it also includes legislative compensation. And a huge piece of it is IT. A lot of information technology, all the things that we think we would like to do. We have a lot of paper stuck on bulletin boards in the Capitol. And one of the things that the committee wanted to do was perhaps add video boards. So then it can change immediately. You don't have to run from floor 1 to floor 5 or back and forth. That just makes sense. And
That's good exercise, but it probably doesn't make sense.
Right. So that's when we started talking about things like that, as well as trying to streamline the bill process, which is very slow. Excuse me, let me take a drink.
Yeah. I had the same thing. I had to get up. We're doing this interview pretty early, Barb. And so we got up and I have my coffee right here. So you got to get us going here. So,
That's
yeah,
right.
but when you get into those legislative issues like you were talking about, those sort of things, there's a lot of coordination between a lot of people to make that happen, and
Yes.
finding a way to do that makes sense.
And luckily we've gotten a lot of agencies. So we've gotten in touch with the administrative branch, executive branch, and judicial branch. And we would like to try to pool some of that money so we can get more bells and whistles, because it's a lot of money being spent on IT. And if we pull our resources together and work together, we can get things that will help each branch of government, as well as having firewalls between each of them. And then one of the other things they brought up is they're concerned because there's very little, I shouldn't say very little, there's concern about some of the uploading of things from counties and cities within the state, which when you think about it, it's very much like your house. If you let more people in, more things might happen. So we're trying to identify what we need to do in order to change that and make it safer for both counties and the state, and go from there.
I had a chance to interview the Secretary of Labor for the state of Kansas, and going through some of the new computer systems they're working on. It's no small feat to do that. And as you mentioned, the more people that have access, the more capability, or the larger the capability.
For someone to sneak in like a mouse getting into your house, they can find the very little space to get in. And then the biggest thing, which we passed that very late night, was a compensation bill. One of the things that we had discussed, we wanted to do, was the legislative pay has not been changed since the 90s. And so we've developed the process of a commission. That's a 4-year commission that would not change any salaries until 2025 or January of 26. And they would be appointed by members of the legislature, but not any current legislator could be on it. 2 of them are supposed to be former legislators, and none of them can be a current legislator, be in a lobbyist position, or work for the government. So
an external group. It's an external group. It's not somebody.
And then they can figure out what we need to do. One of the problems that the entire committee noticed is that we have trouble getting young people, because they can't afford to work there. Yeah, we make $88.66 a day for 90 days, which is not a lot of money. So you see a lot of people who are retired or have the ability to take the sacrifice of coming here, coming to Topeka. So we did pass that. we did pass that bill, but also the Senate added on executive branch and judicial branch salaries, and they link them to congressional salaries, because from studies that we've done, the executive branch and cabinet level ish people are making so much less than they can in the private sector. And so we wanted to try to see if we could align things a little bit better, and perhaps we would have more people interested in doing the job because it's more of a living wage. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, that is no small feat. It happens in business, happens in state. You want the best people, especially when you're dealing with the complicated issues like you are. Barb, going to take a quick break, come back, and want to talk about, you're also on the Higher Education Committee and Taxation Committee. So there's some good news, dollars coming into our state, and some challenges education-wide as well. We'll be back with our state representative, Barb Wasinger, back after this.
The most successful investors are those that can keep their emotions in check and take a longer-term view at what portfolios will be worth 3 to 5 years down the road. I'd say that's the most important in determining what investor outcomes are. Market corrections will continue in the future. We've seen many of them over the years, only to see equity prices rise higher, and that'll be the case in the future.
Worth Wealth Management, enhancing lives and strengthening families.
Our guest on Forward Ever this week is the hardworking, I'll put that in because it has been crazy the last few weeks, our state representative, Barb Wasinger. And Barb, talk a little bit about education, where we stand with that. I know, fortunately, the state's in a better place than they have been financially. You're part of the Taxation Committee as well. But when you take a look at that and put those things together, I think there's some positives in both those areas.
Oh, there are. We did pass a budget for K through 12, which then continues the 20 mills that the local governments collect for education, K through 12 education. And in taxation, we were able to pass bills to give tax relief for disabled veterans, also for senior citizens, not taxing retirement income. We're losing older Kansans because they're going to states that have no income tax on their retirement funds. So we want to keep those in Kansas. I mean, what our whole goal overall is to try to keep people in Kansas that may want to go seek better tax code somewhere else. So we did a lot in the tax committee. I'm also on higher ed, as well as I'm the chair of Joint Administrative Rules and Regulations. And I'm also on the state IT committee.
Well, that takes time. What can we do back here? People that are listening to this, what input do you need from Kansans in our district?
I'm very fortunate. Kansans in our district have called me. They email me. They come to the Capitol. I just need to keep hearing from people, and I'll just keep going to forums and do things like this so people know I'm easy to get a hold of. It's been a little crazy because we've had some family medical things going on, but I usually tell people, if you call and I can't answer because I'm in a meeting, I'm more than happy to give you a call back. So I'm fortunate. I have a district where people are not afraid to come up and ask me. In Dillon's and Walmart and Walgreens, it doesn't matter where you are. They want to ask, and they should, because that's the job.
Barb, how do you get it all done?
You do it just like you do. You take a list, and it's just like everybody else. I
get up and get some caffeine and get going on the day, right?
That's right. I think about when I had 4 little ones under the age of 6 and 7, and I thought, oh, wow, how did I do that? Well, you just one foot in front of the other. But I am very honored and very fortunate to be able to do this job. I never forget that I'm doing it for Kansans and for my district. And so it's been a tremendous honor. I drive up and think, I have a key to this beautiful building. And so we start early. I'm an early riser, so I start early in the morning and we get home late, and we get it all done. We do as much as we can. So we work pretty hard on that.
Barb, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for all the work you do for not only for Kansans, but those of us, especially in this district. So appreciate the work you do.
I'm glad to be here. I do have one thing I want to tell you.
Yes, I want to hear it.
We did pass a probate bill that I started working on over a year ago. Jeremiah Shoemaker came to me. His mother had died, and his father is in jail currently, charged with the attempted murder, alleged murder. He's not found guilty yet, hasn't gone to court. But what Jeremiah realized, there's something called the Slayer Bill. And in probate, you cannot benefit from the death of someone else. You can't receive money from their estate. But what Kansas state law did not approach or address was the fact that it takes a very long time to go to court when you've murdered someone or you have caused the death of someone. And so there was in between, Jeremiah's father could use all of his mother's estate to defend himself or bond out of jail. So they went to Judge Glenn Brown, and he found that the money needed to stay in his mother Karen's estate. So Glenn Brown said, you better go to Barb Wasinger and tell her that she needs to change state law. So I got a bill written up and was able to get that passed. And hopefully in the next few days, we might be able to have a signing ceremony for Jeremiah to come. I'm really proud of Jeremiah for trying to work so hard on this. And I was fortunate that people helped me get this through. So that was a very good thing to be able to do.
That's a good example too of something that a citizen has that is an issue that may have never happened before, or at least never been addressed before, to
Right.
talk to a state representative like yourself and actually get something to happen. So that has to be rewarding for you, because I know so
Was.
many times you work on stuff and you just can't get it done.
You just don't see it come to fruition, but I was fortunate that everyone saw the need for it, and I could get what is in the bill. It says it's Karen's law, so we'll protect anyone else who has something that happens in that way to their families, and they won't have to worry about it. But that did pass unanimously from the House and the Senate. And so I have no reason to believe that the governor won't sign it. And so I'm hoping we can get a signing ceremony in there so that Jeremiah and his family can come and feel really good that they look at what they accomplished. So.
And for those listening, that's a great example of, Barb, the work that you do. So appreciate that. Appreciate your time this morning. I know it's busy. Appreciate that. And thanks for being with us on Forward Ever.
Thanks for having me, Gary. It's been a
Barb
pleasure.
Wasinger, our state representative on our Forward Ever program this morning, is brought to you by Worth Wealth Management, where you can live with confidence. I'm Gary Shorman.
Thanks for joining us for Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management. Join us right here next week for another episode with host Gary Shorman. Until then, remember to move forward ever, backward never.